Okay. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to NVRC's virtual meeting room. I would like to introduce Dr. Larry Medwetsky. He is an educational audiologist. He was director of audiology and subsequently was vice president of clinical services in a large speech and hearing clinic in Rochester, New York. He is presently a professor in the doctoral audiology program in the Department of Hearing, Speech, and Language Sciences at Gallaudet University and director of Gallaudet's Peer Mentor program. Dr. Medwetsky will be covering a lot of information today. You can use the chat feature to ask your questions at any time, but questions will be held until the end. And please don't use the chat feature for anything other than questions. And so with that, I'd like you to join me in welcoming Larry Medwetsky. Larry, it's good to have you back, and we're all going to enjoy your program.
Okay, can everyone see this screen, I hope? So it's a pleasure to touch base with you, and hopefully at the end, I'll get to see all of you as you hopefully ask some very important questions that I hopefully can answer for you. I'm going to start now. And just to let you know, I'm not covering all the options that are out there, but what I believe to be very important advances that have occurred that have made a difference in the lives of everyone who has a hearing loss, as well as the family members who work with us. By the way, please make sure you're all on mute because I hear a little noise that tells me that someone might be not in that mute option. Bonnie, can I just make sure? Can you see me? Because when I kind of minimize the window, so can you just maybe just let me know, Bonnie or Bruce, that you can all see me as well as the presentation?
Yes, we can see you. You're
Okay,
good.
great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk about the latest in hearing technology options. So first, before I even start, I just wanted to share some initial thoughts. And perhaps they're biased being an audiologist for over 40 years, but I feel not only am I an audiologist, I'm also hard of hearing. And I've been hard of hearing since the age of 3, and I'm a consumer. And so the thoughts I'll share by being both a consumer and a professional. So the advent of the digital age, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, the miniaturization of computer chips, and now the introduction of cell phone apps to address the issues, that we have to confront as individuals with hearing loss. All of that has been wonderful and led to greater access and ease of participation in different settings that used to be so problematic for those with hearing loss. And I can let you know that when I was growing up, even with a hearing aid, I struggled in the classroom, in college, where some of the classes were like 500 students. So it used to be very, very difficult for me. And now it's so much easier. However, you know, there's so much out there in technology that if you don't have the proper guidance, then it can result in frustration, disappointment. And if you're purchasing these devices, it could be a waste of money if you don't get the type of technology that best meets your needs. So, how does one determine those listening needs? So, to avoid such issues, Gallaudet has developed what we call the communication needs assessment tool. And I want to give credit to Cynthia Compton Crowley, who developed this. She's no longer at Gallaudet, but she's the one who developed this tool, and we use it at Gallaudet. And it helps audiologists determine what might be the specific listening situations in which an individual might be struggling in. And what's very important to note, and too often what I read or hear about from individuals is focused only on the degree of hearing loss, when even more important than that is one's lifestyle. For example, you can have a mild hearing loss, but yet if you're someone who's going to be in many settings where there's much noise or, all day long, then you may have a lot of trouble. On the other hand, you may have a severe hearing loss, but almost all the time being in quiet settings where you're doing one-on-one, and so you may not have many issues. So it's not the degree of hearing loss only that determines how much difficulty you might be encountering in your life, but your lifestyle. And so this approach that we use is a client-centered approach, where it's the client who guides and helps direct the intervention process. And with the audiologist, it's not coming in this interaction as the expert, but as a collaborator, working equally with the client to determine what will best meet the client's needs. And having the knowledge that the client provides, we can then focus on recommendations that will best meet the client's data needs. So here's just an overview of what this communication needs assessment examines. So in the first slide, we have the basic client factors. Someone just came in. Please mute your mic, so that way I'm not. I get a little distracted. Thank you. So in the client factors, we look at the type and degree of hearing loss, the person's age, any health issue that might be present, their cognitive ability to be able to handle the different types of technology, the cosmetic concerns they may have. Some individuals are fear or want to ensure that the hearing aid is small or certain size. And we have to recognize that, even though as an audiologist, what we most care about is being able to assist you hear better, but we recognize everybody's emotional well-being at that point in time may be an issue. And of course, the budgetary issue. But again, that will be to the client, and the audiologist's responsibility is to make best recommendations, and then it's for the client to decide what they can or can't do. But to also let you know, there are ways to assist. There are different financing plans that are available out there, that if someone can't afford technology at one time, they might be able to pay it over time. So these are client factors. Then what we look at are the listening environmental factors. We look at the home setting, whether one is still working, going to school, or participating in community, and the recreational activities that they may be engaging in. And then within each of these three environments, there are different listening aspects to it. So one called face-to-face, the ability to talk to someone one-to-one or in groups. In relative to media, which is how well they might be hearing the TV, perhaps trying to hear on a computer, going to the movie theater. Then the phone, whether it be a landline or cell phone, are you having issues on either of those? And then the being alerted to important sounds such as a wake-up alarm, or even cooking, like on a stove alarm, hearing the door. And I can't see the other one, like smoke detector, I assume it says there. Have my captioning over it. And we look at those face-to-face media, phone, and alerting in a home or at work, or when you go out. For example, if you go bowling, do you struggle in that setting? Or other kind of places, or in the media, like you go to, let's say, the Kennedy Center, using your phone out in different settings. So we're going to ask questions to try to determine where your need may be in all those various settings, as well as looking at the client factors. So now I'm going to start beginning to talk about the various advances that have occurred over the years. and where we are at this point in time. And those advances that I'll talk about may make a difference and an impact for an individual, but how much it may make depends on how much hearing loss may be present. So when I talk about these developments, I'll be talking in a general sense, but not all of them will have equal benefit because it may depend on a person's hearing loss and other client factors. But, the important thing is that we look at the concern for accessibility and access to all consumers. Even if a certain type of development doesn't have a benefit for someone, we might be able to find another alternative. So we'll be able to help everyone to some degree. They used to be saying, oh, sorry, we can't help you. That's what doctors used to say to their patients. Well, the truth is we can help everyone now to some degree. So even though I won't talk about cochlear implants really in this talk today, I can tell you the advances have occurred with CI since the 1980s. And I was actually involved in some of the initial research in New York City where I was doing my Ph.D., where the early implants were quite primitive, actually. But now I can tell you, I know many individuals are able to communicate with me via Zoom, and they don't even look at me. And I may not even have the captions on at the time, and yet they can follow me easily. And I've been amazed. I couldn't believe, because sometimes I've gone a few years, but actually talking with people with implants via this type of mode, and it's astounding. And there are some people who are in this, attendees today who know what I'm talking about because I'm referring to them. So this slide is showing where we were a long time ago and how far we come. This is a boy.
Interpreters are going to switch, Larry, just real quick.
Okay.
The interpreters are going to switch.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I assume you switched. Okay, so now we'll go on. So I have a picture of a boy here wearing like body aids from like in the 1940s. And you can see the body packs. These are not just body aids. These were like large devices that weighed close to a pound or two. And not very comfortable. And I can imagine that they didn't use these when they were going to phys ed. And now this is like in the 50s and the early 60s, the body aid. And remember I said I had a hearing loss when I was a young child. Well, this is what was available when I was like in a hard of hearing class now, in a self-contained hard of hearing class school. And I did not want to wear these aids because like this girl is to wear body aid for me was like wearing a scarlet letter. I did not want to go out at the time and say I'm hard of hearing. It's just I wanted to be normal. What I did not know at the time is what normal meant to me is I wanted to be perfect. But that I learned later on in life. But anyway, then I want you to see, you see this hearing aid? This is what a hearing aid looked like in the early 1970s. Well, this is an image of a hearing aid that's actually being sold now by a non-hearing aid manufacturer. And this is not very appealing to me, but because this is like what hearing aids looked like 40, 50 years ago, and this is what's being sold now. But you can get it at a low price. But I just wanted to show you because it actually represented a hearing aid, what they used to look like. And this is like a picture of the ship of hearing aids. And then, of course, we had children wearing behind the ear hearing aids, and which they have to because you can't. Little children can't wear in the ear hearing aid because the ears grow, and you'd have to buy new hearing aids all the time. So you just have to replace mold. And this is not bad, but they've gotten even smaller there. And then, in the 1990s, you came out with these completely intercanal hearing aids, which are very cosmetically appealing, even though they're more limited than like this type. These are the latest behind the ear technology devices, and you can match them to hair color if you'd like, and they're really small. You can't see just a little tubing there. And this person really has very short hair, and if somebody really cared about cosmetically, they could just grow their hair a little bit longer, and then no one would see the hearing aid if that was an issue. And then we now have Bluetooth hearing aids you can control and via, like a cell phone, and you can talk, and we're going to talk about those. And then this is the latest hearing aid that have come out this past year. And I love this picture because I feel like I'm looking at space age hearing aids. So I just wanted to show you evolution, advances in styles even. So one of the first features that was very important that advanced is called hearing aid feedback management. And some of these features you might wonder what I'm talking about, but without these advances, we wouldn't be able to do what we're able to do now in terms of listening. So some of you who may have worn hearing aids for many years, like I've worn hearing aids now for 52 years. And I can tell I used to have my hearing aids used to whistle, especially I grew up in Montreal, Canada. And in the winter, it's cold and you had to wear a hat. Well, when I wore a hat over my ears and I had my hearing aids on, they would whistle. Or over time, when my ear mold started shrinking, which can happen, and my ear mold would become loose, my hearing aid would start to whistle. And then the only way I could stop the whistling was to decrease the volume. So I had a choice, not hear as well as I wanted to, or to listen to whistling, which I didn't want. So that was a major issue. Also, for those individuals who needed a lot of power and gain, once a certain level is reached, like trying to set the hearing aid in good volume, you couldn't make the hearing aid any louder and begin to feedback and whistle. So that meant individuals with a profound hearing loss, we couldn't make it loud enough because it would whistle. So in the 2000s, hearing aid manufacturers, because, we were able now to have digital chips and we entered the digital age, and instead of the old analog hearing aid with transistors, we were able to use software. And with the software, they were able to do it in such a way where the detect when the whistling or feedback might just be beginning, and they had ways to just cancel out the feedback. And so what does that mean for us? It means that hearing aid you can increase the volume without worry of any whistling. So now for individuals with profound hearing loss, we can have the volume they need. For individuals that have to put the hat on in the wintertime, no whistling. And for those who had a mild hearing loss or moderate hearing loss, they don't even need ear molds anymore. They can use just tubing or little domes that they can put in their ears. And what it allows for them, at least, is they're physically more comfortable. Even when I don't have to wear my hearing aid, I take them off because the ear mold, even though when you're busy, you don't notice it, but when I'm alone by myself, if I don't need to hear, I take them off because they're not as comfortable as not wearing them. So I will take them off. And also, they find for mild moderate hearing loss, when you put ear mold, even though the hearing aid could hear others well, they found their own voices sounded like as if they were talking in a barrel. And I can't get into why, but without the ear mold, that allows their ears to hear the low pitches from the environment directly because they don't need any gain or very little there. And so they could hear their voice naturally. So feedback management was a wonderful tool that was introduced. And it's allowed many things to happen going forward. I'm now going to talk about what's called adaptive directional mic technology, but I'll introduce some concepts first. So I need to first talk about the difference between an omnidirectional microphone and directional microphone technology. Omnidirectional means from all directions. So it allows the microphone to pick up sound from in front, in the back, and the sides equally. The problem is that if you're in a noisy environment and you're talking to someone who may be in front of you, you don't want to pick up sounds from all directions because you may be picking up more noise and making it harder to hear you. Or if you're in a car and you're driving, if it's picking up the motor noise from in front and you have someone talking behind you, you don't want to be able to pick up that noise. So directional microphones, and when we talk about directional, we're going to talk about the technology that used to be around in the 70s all the way to about 2010. Directional mics have a narrow beam. They don't pick up sound equally from all directions. And normally these microphones were focused on beaming in front, minimizing the amplification from the side and behind. Now, up to the 1970s, up to 2000, before the digital age came, if you got a directional mic, you had to face the person. And actually, even this has been only until the past 2 or 3 years when you use directional mic, you had to face the person because they tended to amplify the signal primarily from in front. And what that meant is that if someone was on, like the side of you, you had to turn around to face them because otherwise directional mic beaming in front would not pick up the side. So that's a problem, as I'm saying, when someone's sitting on your side. For me, like I'm walking with someone and hearing it, if I'm facing front and the directional mic are facing forward, then I won't hear the person walking next to me. Or if they're sitting next to me in a car, or if I go to a conference or a play and I want to hear someone next to me, I always would have to turn my head. So now, in the past few years, and I would say maybe only 2 or 3 years, manufacturers develop algorithms. That means software programs that enable hearing aids to determine what is speech and what is noise. That is, sound is not equally, and speech has different characteristics of noise. And now the software can determine what is characteristic of speech and what is more like random noise. And so if they can do that, then the algorithm to direct the microphone to focus on the speech signal, regardless of where the speech may be coming from. So now they can shift the beam to what you want to amplify. It no longer has to be in front. So if someone is on the side of you or behind you, the hearing aid can shift the focus on the side or behind, wherever the speech may be coming from, and lower the gain from the other directions where the noise is deemed to be present. So that will enhance the audibility of the speech signal, making it easier to focus and listen to the talker, because that's what's going to be more amplified. And so this, not only can the hearing aid switch direction, but it can also now switch from the omni mode to directional, vice versa. So it depends if there's speech and noise in the environment. If there is, then it's going to set the hearing aid into this directional mode and find out where the speech is and direct it there. But let's say you're in quiet, and for most of us, we actually spend ourselves in quiet maybe 80 to 90% of the time. And in those situations, you don't need it to be directional because you want to be able to hear. Let's say you have 3 or 4 of you sitting around the table, but you're just in someone's home and there is no noise, then you want to be able to hear all the talkers around you equally. So it switches. So that's a wonderful. So adaptive directional microphone technology is analyzing the environment, deciding if there's noise or not, and if there's speech there, directing the mic to focus on the talker, and if it's quiet, switching to an omni mode. So that's an amazing development in terms of hearing aid technology. And here it's just a little figure just showing you. So if, let's say, someone was talking in front of you, so you see the speech here, then it's going to decrease any of the noise to the side. Now, if, let's say, let's say, I'm going to just say, pretend that someone was talking over here on the side and pretend they're looking here, that it'll change direction. So the hearing aid will direct to the speech, and now it'll attenuate from, even in front or behind. So it'll consider it. What it says here, front, it means that the speech is being directed to the talker, even though that person might be to the side. So that's the adaptive. It looks for where the speech is. It might be in front of your eyes, or it'll make it pretend as if you're facing the person, even though that person's actually to your side. Another program that hearing aid can do is called noise comfort. And sometimes, for example, and hopefully I'm not promoting Starbucks by saying this, but it's anywhere like that. So let's say individuals, you find yourself in a very noisy place, but you're not with anyone, you're just by yourself. And so just imagine you're sitting alone in Starbucks, you go there for a cup of coffee and you bring a book, or pretend you went grocery shopping by yourself and there's a lot of noise there. Well, if you're not talking to anybody, then you don't need to listen to all that noise, because that actually is tiring to the ear than to your brain. And so if the hearing aid recognizes much noise but no speech, what it'll do is automatically reduce the overall volume. And the goal of doing that is to provide increased listening comfort and reduce listening fatigue. Sometimes I notice, especially sometimes when I present for like 2 or 3 hours, and I don't realize, but I find myself, I'm talking loud, and then later, and pretend I'm noise. And when I stop talking after 2 or 3 hours, all of a sudden I find my head is buzzing. Well, if you go out in a very noisy place and you're out there for an hour or two shopping or whatever, and you're going to a quiet place, you might find your head feeling like buzzing. And that's because your hearing aid are amplifying that noise unnecessarily. So the hearing aids try to make it comfortable. So that way, you don't have to listen to loud noise for nothing. And this is what, and I'll explain this graph. So on the horizontal axis, it shows frequency, like on a piano, go from low pitch to high pitch. And here it's called the absolute dB difference. It means like how much change might there be from the initial situation to after the hearing aid go into action. When you look at this orange line here, that means speech with noise stimulus. So a hearing aid, a modern hearing aid with the feature included in there, in terms of being able to recognize and adapt to the environment, if it recognizes speech in the noise, it leaves it alone and doesn't do very much. It'll cut out the lows because that's where you may not need, and it may cut out a highs somewhat, but it's trying to maintain the speech alone. So it does not amplify, does not decrease it much. And then the blue line would mean, gee, the hearing aid recognizes all noise and really, really suppresses it. And so that way you don't have much sound. You don't have to listen to that. By the way, it's not exactly, if somebody questioned me and say, oh, this graph's not exactly correct, you're right. But I'm just trying to just pretend with me that the blue line is representing what the hearing aid has done and squashed down while leaving the speech and noise alone. So that way you can still hear the speech. Now, the next slide, what we're going to be looking at is what's referred to as frequency lowering. So what does that refer to? Well, there is a subset population of individuals with hearing loss who have much better hearing in the low pitches and actually very poor hearing in the highs. And even if we can make the high frequencies much louder, because there's a lot of damage in the inner ear in that region, and that's why you have so much hearing loss, that even when you amplify, there are not enough hair cells and nerve fibers to transmit the signal with high fidelity. And so even if you amplify them, the speech sound will likely not sound clear in the high pitches. And the problem is, by making these sounds that are not very clear or sounding very distorted, it'll actually make it worse in terms of listening to others. So what a technique that's been developed and been around for many, many years, but initially there were some issues with it, and I think I'll mention in a second. But the goal of these techniques is to transpose. Transpose means to shift from one area to another. So the technique using software is to transpose the high frequency speech sound and shift them actually to lower frequencies where a listener has much better clarity. However, there's our caveat. One, it can take the listener much time to adjust to the speech sounds because you might be listening with the hearing aid for many, many years, and your brain's, or even if you haven't had a hearing aid, your brain has adjusted to a certain way of listening. And then when you introduce a whole new different way of trying to listen, it takes a while for the brain to learn how to adjust. And it's actually, the learning actually occurs because your neurons and neural connections have to change to now be able to process sound that it hasn't heard in a long, long time. Also, one of the things is when you take the sound that were in a high frequencies and move them to the lows, you're now squishing it from, let's say, a region of 250 to 10,000 hertz. You might now be shifting that whole range down to 250 to 1,000 hertz. So now you're requiring the brain to process sound in a narrow region. So that is what has taken so long to figure out how do we best do that without giving too much information in our region for the brain to be able to process. But now we have new algorithms that show promise, and many individuals are actually benefiting. So where we wouldn't be able to help people before, this technique for people who had very little hearing or no hearing at high pitches, we're actually helping many with this technique. But also, I just wanted to mention that we now have individuals, rather than using hearing aids, in the past 5 to 10 years, we've developed what's called hybrid cochlear implants, where the individuals are fit with cochlear implant, but the electrodes that are part of the implant are only stimulating the high pitches. That is the area where the individual may not have any hearing at all. But if they have hearing in the low pitches, to actually to use a hearing aid portion of this hybrid, where the hearing aid portion will transmit signals to the low frequencies, where the individual actually still has enough hair cells to benefit better with the hearing aid part than they would with the electrode. So it's allowing the best of both worlds here to occur. And one of the reasons why is that electrodes or implants by themselves are not necessarily able to transmit like the pitch of a voice as well through electrodes as through a hearing aid or music. So when you have this part of a cochlear implant where you can have the hearing aid transmitting low frequencies, allowing the person to hear the pitch, allowing them to hear music, and the high frequencies to the electrodes where they provide much better clarity than they could through a hearing aid, it helps the individuals a lot. So this is just a little graph where you just want to get, so you can see, pretend this is much better hearing the lows. Anything closer to the top, it's better hearing, and anything in the high frequencies and it decreases means that the hearing is dropping. And so there's not much hearing. First of all, there's no hearing above 6,000 and very little between like 2 and 3. So the idea is to shift everything here and move it over in and map it into the lower frequencies where the person can't hear. I am now just going to take a 1-minute break for everybody to just not have to hear me for, don't go anywhere, but I'm just going to give you a break for a minute, and that'll just make it easier for you to process the rest of my talk. And I'm going to get a drink of water. I thought it would also give a break for the interpreters as well. But just sometimes not having to concentrate so much, it gives you an opportunity to just regenerate a little bit. If I had more time, we would engage in breathing exercises too. Okay, so hopefully that helped a little bit there. Okay, so we're going to resume now. So now we're going to get into some of the exciting stuff. So now the other stuff is critical and crucial because without those advances, we would not be able to utilize the hearing aids in ways that we can nowadays. But now we're going to talk about the jump from hearing aid to now changing, ultimately calling not hearing aid anymore, but personal hearing assistance or personal hearing listening technology. I don't know what to call it, so I'll have to come up with a name. Because now what I'm going to share here not only allows us to do what people with hearing within normal limits can do, but some of these advances allow us to hear situations much better than individual with normal hearing. It allows us to do so many different things. And so we are now going into an age where wearing our devices allows us to do things that other people without hearing aid can't do. So wireless hearing aid connectivity. So perhaps this is the greatest hearing aid advance of all. What wireless connectivity refers to is the ability to stream, to send acoustic signals from other sources such as telephone, sound systems, media devices, without the use of hardwired cables to the hearing aid. So sending signals wirelessly from other devices to the hearing aid. I'm going to talk primarily about two of these modes of wireless transmission and the advantages and disadvantages of both. And so please note, I'm not going to be talking about induction loops or electromagnetic fields today, which is wireless technology or infrared. I'm going to be talking about hearing aid connectivity rather than that other type of hearing assistive technology. So one is called near field magnetic induction, and often referred to as near field wireless communication. And then Bluetooth wireless transmission. And Bluetooth we'll talk about is also part of, and kind of I'll talk about is 2.4 gigahertz transmission. And I'll talk about that too. So the first thing I just want to show you a figure is I have an example of a device where it uses near field, and we're going to talk about that. And actually, I think I have this slide in the wrong order here. And here's a remote mic that can communicate with this device. And this is what called a compilot from Phonak. And those wires are not a neck loop, they're not a cord only. They are, when they're worn around the neck, allow the person to actually be able to hear this remote mic from 30 feet away and being sent to the hearing aid. And I thought it was a cute picture of this person wearing this kind of receiving streamer that and using near field magnetic induction. So what is it? Near field magnetic induction wireless signals have a much lower frequency transmission than Bluetooth. And one of the differences until the past year or two compared to Bluetooth is that near field magnetic induction is able to go through or around objects such as the human head. And so this allowed someone to have a receiving device where by receiving it and then wearing this like wire around the head, it allows signals to go between the hearing aid and to talk to each other. And when they talk to each other, for example, if you wanted to decrease the volume, you didn't have to then go to one hearing aid and then to other. By just even using a remote control that sent it to the hearing aid through this near field magnetic induction, with a remote control, you could hit the volume simultaneously in both ears. Or there's a feature called duophone, where if you had a hear on this set on the hearing aid, you could listen to a telephone in one ear, and it could send wirelessly right through or around your head to the other hearing aid. So you could actually hear a phone through both hearing aids. Or you could stream music in stereo to both hearing aids. The problem with near field magnetic induction is that the range of this is only 1 meter. And that's the reason why what I showed you in the previous slide, that you would have to wear like a device, a receiver, and with a wire around you, because if you put it more than 3 feet away from you, you no longer could pick up the signal that was being sent to it from other devices, like a cell phone or a remote mic. So you have to wear it. So that's why it's called near field, meaning that it had a very limited range from which you could then pick up the signals from the receiver or the streamer. Now, and that's why there's a number of companies have used, and many still continue to use a streamer, because if you just had originally relied on just Bluetooth, and we'll talk about that in a second, the Bluetooth originally could not allow it to go through the hearing aid. Here, near field uses called 10 megahertz, but the wavelength is longer than the Bluetooth, and the Bluetooth just could not penetrate through the head or go around it. And so the two hearing aids could not communicate for speech signals or any type of sound. And so what companies would do is that they would have a streamer that could pick up Bluetooth, but then it could not allow it to communicate between the hearing aids. And so the way they overcame that was to use the streamer to use near field, and then they could allow the hearing aid to be able to hear the acoustic signals. So we talk about, and I've already alluded, and in presenting, I realized I put some of these slides in the wrong order, so I apologize. So hearing aid streamers are able to communicate with Bluetooth devices such as cell phones, Bluetooth transmitters that connect to TV and computers. How the streamers do so is on the input side of a streamer, like the device I showed before. It has the ability to communicate in what's called Bluetooth Classic. So that, like all these devices, cell phones, Bluetooth transmitters, TV, computers, even garage openers and things like that, there is what's called a Bluetooth standard that all these devices use. They're all use the same standard, and you can pair a device to them as long as you're on the same Bluetooth standard. So many companies develop these streamers that would be on that same standard. So on the input side, they can pair with those devices, as I said, with what's known as Bluetooth Classic. But on the output side, many of these streamers, they use near-field magnetic induction to the hearing aids. So allow the hearing aid to be connected by the streamer intermediary to the Bluetooth devices. So on the input, the streamer could connect to the Bluetooth devices, but then the signal that they were sent to the hearing aid could not be in that Bluetooth, because it could not allow the hearing aid to communicate each other. So they used this near field magnetic induction, a different mode of transmission, which then you could then be able to communicate with those external devices like cell phones. Now, I just wanted to mention there is one device from what's called Clear Sound, which is a company, their device Quattro 4, is that there are individuals who have hearing aids that are not near field magnetic induction compatible. They don't have the software in those devices. These individuals might be wearing older hearing aids that have a T-coil. So Clear Sound, what they developed was a device or streamer where it could still communicate with the Bluetooth devices, but the output was either through a headset or a neck loop. So if you have a hearing aid with T-coils and you could not connect via NFMI, you could still be able to listen to other devices like cell phone or TV. However, you will not be able to hear in stereo, because T-coils, you hear in a mono, or you don't hear it in a stereo mode. So And also some streamers also function that has a remote mini mic. So I'm going to show you, and I don't know if you can see, but I'm wearing what's called the Oticon Connect clip, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So here is a clear sound, and it's a Bluetooth device. It can connect to cell phone, and it also, you can put a TV transmitter that comes with the product. It also, on the top here, is a mini mic that you can actually take off and someone can wear it. And it is a device where it's like a regular microphone, and it sends a signal by Bluetooth to the device. And then this, what looked like a cord, is actually a neck loop. And if you had T-coil, you could wear with that. Here is this Connect clip. This is a streamer, but it's more than just a streamer. It's also a mini mic. And so this device, which I'm wearing right now, you can, on the input side, can be paired, like I use it with my cell phone. Right now, I actually have a little transmitter connected to my computer, so it allows me to hear anybody talk on the computer, and the transmitter sends it to my streamer, and then the output sends it to my hearing aid, but not by near field magnetic induction. It has another way of sending to my hearing aids. So now we're going to go to the other way of transmission called 2.4 gigahertz transmission. Bluetooth is a subcategory of that. Wi-Fi is a subcategory in the 2.4 gigahertz. That's million hertz. Microwaves are in there. So there's a lot of different devices that are in this range. Now, until recently, Bluetooth, the standard Bluetooth devices used, as I talked about, when you try to use that, and companies were trying to use that in hearing aids for 20 or 30 years, but the problem was with Bluetooth, the way it communicates caused a lot of battery drainage, and hearing aids, the batteries could only last for like 15, 20 minutes. So we could not use and pair our hearing aid with Bluetooth with devices. And that's why we used intermediaries, because those come with much larger batteries and can last 8 or 10, 12 hours or more. But in the 2010s, just, like 2015 on, a new type of Bluetooth evolved, and it's called Bluetooth 4.0, and now recently 4.1, has low energy developed. So it now could be used in a hearing aid without causing battery drainage. However, this Bluetooth low energy is not the same as the Bluetooth Classic. So even though we could use it in hearing aid, that did not allow hearing aid to directly communicate with various Bluetooth devices like cell phones. Now, so let me tell you a little about the properties of Bluetooth low energy. Instead of near field magnetic induction, which is only a distance of 3 feet, it can go up to 30, 60 feet away. So originally, traditionally, this signal could not propagate through or around obstacles like the low frequency magnetic induction cables. So that's why, and I'll share an exciting development, but until recently, you could not, even though you could allow a hearing aid to pick up a signal from 30, 60 feet, it did not allow the hearing aid to talk to each other, though. So meaning that each hearing aid separately could pick up a signal being delivered 30, 60 feet, but you could not have one hearing aid talk to the other, because these sound waves, the Bluetooth are radio waves, and they're such short waves they could not penetrate and go around the head. So you still need a streamer with NFMI if you wanted the hearing aid to be able to communicate with each other. But now with 4.0, like I said, speech can be transmitted to hearing aids separately, but through an intermediary like the Connect clip. So you can hear actually in stereo. And it's exciting because I can put the Connect clip 30, 45, 50 feet away, and I don't have to wear that streamer. I don't have to wear the Connect clip. I can put it down. And so when I go to the gym, and let's say I'm going to treadmill, I don't actually have to wear a device. I can put my cell phone and Connect clip, on the floor or in a stand. Actually, earlier, before I started presentation, Bruce was talking and I left. He didn't know. Bruce and Bonnie didn't know. I walked away. I had to get a drink, get my bottle of water, and I went 30 feet away, and I was still able to hear everything. So like I say, so the Connect clip, it has Bluetooth, connect to all the devices through Bluetooth class, but on the output side, the Bluetooth 4.0 low energy can then send the signals separately to my hearing aid. So now I can hear in stereo, I can hear conversation and hands-free. So I use the device when I'm in a car driving. And I do wear the Connect clip in that case because then it also has a mini mic. So that's my device where I talk into, and I could put it down, but then other people wouldn't hear me so clearly. So I wear it only to allow other people to hear me then. Now, exciting development that come out in 2019, 2020. And other companies are going to copy this, but we now have the Phonak Marvel hearing aids. And Phonak engineers have developed technology, including a very, very tiny antenna and an incredible chip with over 30 million transistors. Golly, like if people who are my age used to have radios, we might have like 10 or 15 transistors in radios in the 1960s. Think of 15 transistors now compared to 30 million, and you put on a chip. And what it's allowed is they've overcome these deficiencies that were inherent with the Bluetooth transmission. And now it allows for ear-to-ear communication. So the new Phonak Marvel hearing aids, the hearing aid can communicate with each other. The transmission can overcome the head shadow or the blockage effect. And so what they've done also, and I don't know how, but they've built in Bluetooth Classic right into the chip on the hearing aids. What does that mean? You don't need a streamer anymore. It means the hearing aid can communicate and pair up directly with Bluetooth devices. So you can connect your hearing aid to the cell phone. You can connect it to other Bluetooth devices. Let's say you have a Bluetooth-enabled TV. It can send the signal right to the hearing aid and be paired. Also, because the two hearing aids can communicate with each other, if you listen to music, you can hear in stereo. You can also, the two hearing aids can work together as well. So, again, you can communicate directly with Bluetooth devices such as cell phone, Bluetooth computers. You can allow for music streaming and the hearing aid to work together. This chip also uses artificial intelligence. So what does that do? It analyzes the acoustic environment. And then by analyzing it, it determines, okay, what's going on. And then through intelligence over time, it takes certain features in the hearing aid and it decides on what features is best to use for that particular environment. And it takes the features to optimize the sound in that environment. And over time, it actually learns so that when it comes back into that environment, it will more quickly go into those particular settings. So that is what artificial intelligence is able to do. It analyzes on the fly in real time, making calculate millions of calculations to determine what's best for that environment. And so I just wanted to show you like some of the technology here that we can, and I'm going to go in a little more. So we have these Marvel hearing aids. They're rechargeable. So now you don't even need batteries, new batteries they can charge. And by being rechargeable, actually, I don't know if they're waterproof, but they're much more water resistant than in the past because when you don't need to have battery doors and use rechargeable, you can seal it better. And then we have like you can connect a device to the TV that can send right to the hearing aid, microphones right to the hearing aid. You don't have to wear them, paired with the cell phone. So it's amazing what we can do. I wanted to talk now about another type of hearing aid called the Starkey Livio. AI means artificial intelligence. It's the first healthable hearing aid. That's how they refer to it. They use sensors within the hearing aid these sensors are computer chips, programs to sense the environment and the person, and it uses artificial intelligence relative to taking that information and using it. So, for example, it can track body activity, how many steps you take, your movement, your heart rate if it's getting high, how often you engage in social with other people and listening. And it derives scores at the body and brain activity. And it can use that activity data through these sensors, and you can then pair it up to various apps that are available, Apple Health and Google Fit apps. And so using that information, you're able to, with the program, determine, are you walking enough? Are you doing enough? Is your heart rate getting to where you want it? It also has a sensor to determine if you might be falling. And if you do fall, it can actually alert other people to come help you. And what it's actually done, we know, and I'm sure you, and hopefully you've been to lectures or presentations that talk about how hearing loss is not a minor problem, but associated with other major issues, such as an increased risk of falling or an increased risk of dementia, and so, or other issues like that. And so the goal of this is not only to help you hear better, but to live better, to decrease the associated issues that might come with hearing loss. And so, as I said earlier, hearing aids are not now just hearing aids anymore. They're personal listening systems, or whatever you want to call them, or helpable hearing aids. So, like to here shows it's defining what a hearing aid is and what it can do. So, first of all, communicate by the cloud up there in the sky somewhere. Use artificial intelligence. You can communicate directly to cell phone. It can detect if there's falls. It learns and able to help you over time by Bluetooth connectivity accessories. So it can connect to many other devices. The last platform I'm going to talk about, and I estimate it will be done in about 10 minutes, and then we'll be able to take questions. I want to talk about what's called the Phonak Roger platform. And I'm not trying to plug Phonak, but they, in terms of accessories and hearing system technology, they've been a leader. And some of the other companies like Oticon as well had tried to do what Phonak done, but they've done this maybe a little ahead of others. So I just want to talk about that. So Phonak Roger system replaced FM systems. We tend to use the word FM system a lot, but FM technology is being phased out. One of the reasons was that it was somewhat limited, and it didn't rely so much on digital technology. And the FM, or frequency modulators, that's like your radio system, was limited to what's called a 72 to 76 kilohertz band. I think it was, or it might be megahertz. I might have screwed that up here. I can't remember now. Sorry if it's been so long that I can't remember which one it is. Anyway, Phonak replaced that by using a digital way of transmission, and they created a Roger remote microphone technology, not using Bluetooth, but using a different part of the 2.4 gigahertz transmission to connect to compatible receivers using this Roger direct technology. And there was no frequency interference that occurred. Like, so with FM systems, I remember sometime picking up like other radio channels, like private kind of radio stations that were in that band. And so that should be megahertz, because that's just, so anyway. So, but there's no frequency interference. Number one, it's on a 2.4 gigahertz, which is a much wider band, but also it does what's called frequency hopping. So with a paired Roger receiver, the two together, what they do, they analyze the environment, and they look for a band that's free, and they find it and they stay in it. And then if it appears, and they keep on analyzing, and at any moment there might be another signal that's starting to interfere, it goes to a different time. So many times a minute. I could not figure out how many times it does this, but with maybe thousands of times a minute. calculating where the three ends so you get no interference. Also, radio technology uses adaptive, meaning it can change with the software that continually analyzes the noise levels in the environment. And so the idea is to find and keep the radio signal clearly above the background noise. So analyze it and adjust the signal to keep it above that. Also, I'm going to talk about there's a certain technology where multiple radio microphones that can link together. So that means regardless of which radio system microphone you use, you can have many people talking on it without interfering with each other. And unlike Bluetooth transmitters, where you can, like if you have a certain like transmitter on a Bluetooth, the maximum you can have are 3 receivers. With the radio technology, you can be connected to infinite number of receivers. So it's adaptive, the technology, so such that when you hold a radio mic in a vertical position, like on your chest, the mic enters what's called a directional mode. So that's facing the talker, so it better pick up the talker's voice. But when you put it on a table, it becomes an omnidirectional mode, so to pick up speakers around the table. So it switches from vertical directional to table omnidirectional. 3 types of radio microphone: the radio pen, the radio select, and the radio table mic. So the radio pen was the first of the radio mics introduced. When it was introduced, they also developed a compatible radio receiver called a MyLink that can be sent directly from radio pen, picked up by MyLink, and then you could wear it with your hearing aids. Also, they developed like a little universal receiver that for other systems you can connect. There's like a certain port that you could connect on Phonak FM systems as well as other company systems that can change those systems. Rather than being an FM, they could become radio compatible. Now the radio pen has 3 manual microphone modes on it: omni, so 360 degrees; directional, so it can zoom in a certain angle; or ultra zoom or auto zoom, the most beam-like. And it also has the adaptive mic feature that we talked about in the last slide. And here's a picture of the radio pen with the 3 different mic settings. Now, with the introduction of Marvel hearing aids, you no longer need an external receiver such as the MyLink or a little a device that you attach. The radio mic can stream right to the hearing aid directly because there's a software program inside or a radio receiver computer program that you can activate in the Marvel hearing aids. And also, recently, the radio pen in was introduced, where you can put the pen into a docking station and you can connect the docking station to a cell phone, to an MP3 player, TV, etc. And then it allowed the radio pen to send a signal to any of the radio compatible hearing aids, allowing you to hear the cell phone or others that way. Or you can connect these devices directly to these BT devices via USB cable to the radio pen. Or with the Marvel hearing aids, as I said, you can connect directly to the devices even without the radio pen. So here's a picture of the radio pen in the docking station. The radio select actually is not just like a radio pen with 1 mic, but it has 6 microphones. And they create beams, like narrow beams, as to the signals they're going to listen to in 6 directions. So they cover that whole circle. So each of these might cover 60 degrees of that 360-degree circles. And in noise settings, that actually to calculate and determine and analyze the signal-to-noise ratio for all 6 directions, and it automatically selects the beam with the best clarity for the speech signal. So when placed on a table, it automatically select the person who's talking, and it can switch from one talker to another. So, somebody on a different microphone being picked up better, so it switches to that. Another talker begins, and it switches to which one it's going to listen to. So now when multiple conversations take place, like a lot of people talking, now the radio select doesn't know who it wants to listen to. you can also manually override, and you can decide, oh, I want to listen to the person, forget about the other people. So here's a picture of the Roger Select. So each of these like little curvatures are different microphones. And so it's picking up and I'll decide, oh, I want to hear the person in this direction or this way. Or you can actually press on it to decide I want to listen to one person. This has a docking station as well, like the Roger Pen, so you can connect this to different Bluetooth devices. And with the Roger Select, send the signal right to your hearing aids. The last of the Roger system I wanted to briefly talk about is the Roger table mic, which is dedicated for working situations when one participant, when one goes to a different meeting. Now, similar to the Roger Select, it also has 6 mics, each being in a 60-degree angle. But you can pair and network with each other to create a multi-talker network. So rather, like the Roger Select, great on a mic if you have like 4 people around. But if you have a table that's 20 feet long, one Roger Select cannot deal with that. But if you put maybe 3 or 4 Roger table mics, one every like 4 or 5 feet down the table, then they connect to each other, and then it can decide and pick up the person nearest to it. So the Roger table mic select the person who's talking, and they switch automatically between the meeting participants. So here's an example of the Roger table mic networked and in action. So you have one Roger table mic here, one here, one here. And then if someone over here is talking, that's close, that's the one's going to pick up, or if someone else begins to talk, it's sent to the person who have, like here, they're showing an older thing with the MyLink, for example, which they had near field, and the person was able to hearing it. But now you can send it right to the Marvel hearing aids. And so here's an example. It's just in the Roger touchscreen mic, so you could actually see and press on the Roger Select. This is a Roger clip-on mini mic, so if someone like a spouse was wearing it, could send the mic, transmit it right to the hearing aid or to a MyLink Roger Pen. So the last thing I want to talk about quickly are cell phone apps for use as hearing assistive technology. So there are actually voice to text that converts voice to where you can see it. One such system is Live Transcribe from Google. It's free download. It was actually developed by Google and Gallaudet. And you can download it, you can use it, but it's only for Android phones because Google is an Android product. It works with Android. Just the caveat is that I've had some difficulty in a lot of noise, but if you attach a highly directional mic to the phone, you could cut out some of the noise and still use it in those settings. Another app like that for use with Android and iPhones called Live Caption. I think it's only $2.99 to pay for it. So here's the kicker. Live Transcribe, you see the word appear on the phone as it's spoken. It actually autocorrects. So for example, you see I'd like a table for 2 at 2 p.m. so it can correct itself, and etc. There's also, so Live Transcribe is good for less than one person at a time. There's an app called Ava, which is for group conversations. So each person who want to participate in a group, they would download the app, so they would all have Ava on their cell phone, and there would be a color code. And each person, when they would just talk normally, just be near the phone, and the speech to text would be sent to all the cell phones linked, and you get a message, and as anyone talks, there would be a color, so that would let you know who's talking, and you would see the voice. And so you can use Ava in group meetings, in restaurants, one-on-one, church, etc. And it actually does quite well with moderate background noise. And I read somewhere that indicated it was more accurate than the Google Live Transcribe. So it's compatible for Android and iPhones. Now, if you use it up to, I think, like 5 hours a month, I think that's what I understood, it's for free. But if you want to use it more often, then you pay $29 a month. So if you're a person who goes to a lot of meetings, $29 a month is worth it then. So here's just a picture of Ava being used. Let's go, different color. If you want to join a group conversation. Now, even though this is not a cell phone app, I just wanted to briefly mention Zoom and Google Meet. So these two software programs, you can download it to a cell phone or to your computer. You not only get and it's free. I communicated last night. Every Friday now, I communicate now with my friend in Australia. It has excellent voice-to-text software, and you can do that without any training. Hopefully you can see, if those are using Zoom today, the captions are quite accurate most of the time. So it has an autocorrect feature. I'm not sure about Google Meet if it has that or not. And it also has embedded closed captioning, as you can see. I think, but I'm not 100% sure that playback, you just have to hit CC and you can see the caption. So I'll find that out. Still trying to see if I can do that or not. And you can also have 3 size fonts. So right now I'm using the smallest side because otherwise it'll interfere with me seeing the presentation. But you could adjust it. You can use a mobile device as a remote mic. So as I said, you can either put down your cell phone and then send the signal right to your hearing aids if you use a streamer or like Marvel hearing aid, for example. But if you're in a noisy place, you might want a high quality directional mic. And there's a thing called a mic. There are different prices, but you just place the smartphone close to the talker, send up to 45 feet away. And the microphone can be used, however, only on iPhone. And I don't know why that would be the case. But there are other mics, I'm sure, available you can attach to Android phone. So here's like just attaching like the Bluetooth mic to the phone, place it down on the table. So let's say you go to a lecture, a small room like 30 feet away, put it down right on where the person's talking and send it right to your hearing aid. So you don't need an FM or anything. Just need your cell phone as that, or your own remote mini mic, whatever you want to use. You can also use a mobile device as an alerting system. So there are apps to pick up environmental sound, door knocks, smoke alarm, telephone ring. And you can even have it such where you can, let's say someone's calling you, it'll have a different vibration pattern. And it can alert you by vibration or flashing lights. And like alerting devices, so they can be triggered. And you can there's a problem in terms of sensitivity, but you can adjust it so they don't trigger unnecessarily to extraneous sounds, only to the sound that you want. And here is just different apps here, like showing you how you can be alerted to a smoke alarm or a doorbell or, alarm clock, etc. So I just wanted to show you that in different ways, number of vibrations, you can just tap for a door knock, etc. I think this is the last device I use called the VibraSaver. It's a strong vibration bed shaker, smart Wi-Fi. And I use it with an app. So I download an app. I set on my app the days and times I want the alarm to go off. I can use it for myself, or I could actually put the VibraSaver in my son's room, set it for him, and I can wake him even though he's not in the same room. So you can use it remote. And what I love about this is I can go away to a convention or a vacation. I don't have to bring an alarm clock. I don't have to rely on a hotel. All I have to do is bring my cell phone and this VibraSaver, and I'm able to use it to wake up when I need to and not worry about it. So here's the VibraSaver under a pillow, and the app to set on, and you can set it to strong and normal, etc. Oh shoot, I forgot. The last thing, over-the-counter hearing aids. I'm just going to say something quickly. I'm just going to go quickly on this because I know I need to have questions. Bruce, what should I do? I see you 5 more minutes here. How do I do this?
I think, we should probably try to finish with your slides and then take a short break.
Okay, great. And then, because I think it'll be just a few minutes, take a break, and then hopefully answer questions. If people can ask if the interpreters are not available, at least we have the captioning onto there.
We'll be okay, but yeah, we need to finish up here.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I was asked to talk about over-the-counter hearing aids, so I'm going to do that and just some of the thoughts here. So over-the-counter hearing aids are supposed to become available this year, but they are not yet on the market. The FDA is still finishing their guidelines. They're supposed to be published by August 2020, and then they'll promote the guidelines for input from the medical community and potential users. So just be aware, until these guidelines are made official, consumers have to be aware that if any ad you see say, oh, this is an OTC hearing aid, that be aware of that because they've not received FDA approval. And a lot of times I'll see, like I saw Walmart saying about hearing aids this week in ads. I went to check it when I was notified about that. Those are not OTC hearing aids. They're actually hearing aids. I guess Walmart went through FDA approval, but they're not OTC hearing aids. Just because you can get them online or through Walmart doesn't make them over-the-counter hearing aids. And they're going to be regulated medical devices through the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. You'll be able to purchase them without medical prescriptions, but just be careful that if you're new, if never worn hearing aids, you really should check to make sure you have no underlying medical issue. But hey, it's like buyers beware. That's your problem. If you don't get a medical prescription, then just beware. They're only going to be available for adults, not children, so 18 and older, and only for those with a mild to moderate hearing loss. So if you have a severe, profound hearing loss, these devices will not be made for you. They will not be strong enough for you. And you'll be able to purchase them directly from retail or online. Now, they'll obviously be cheaper than those bundled cost hearing aids. What is a bundled cost hearing aid? That's not only the device, it includes the fitting visit to fit the devices and any service warranty. For example, Gallaudet, if someone buys hearing aids for us, and we kind of have a hybrid model, bundled and unbundled, but when you get hearing aids to us, you not only, let's say it's a private paying third party, we have a 3-year manufacturer and service warranty. So for 3 years, if you come back to us, any visit you get, you don't have to pay for. So if you buy hearing aid and you need to get visit and unbundled, you always have to pay for visit. So that's the difference between bundling and unbundling. Caveats. As I said earlier, they'll only be available to individuals with mild to moderate degree of hearing loss. The maximum output will be limited to prevent damaging hearing in these types of individuals. So it's not going to be strong enough for those with severe to profound hearing loss. So if you've been waiting for these OTC hearing aids and you have severe to profound hearing loss, don't wait. They won't meet your needs. Now, also know the primary problem for those with mild to moderate hearing loss is not hearing quiet, but it's hearing in noise. So what these devices, what's going to be important is that the hardware and software included, it's somehow going to have to make sure to address those noise issues. They'll have to have directional mics. They're going to have to be able to cancel noise out, not nose. I'd hate to somebody lose their nose out of this. They'll have to have programming app flexibility. That is, to be able to set the hearing aid for when you're listening quiet, when in noise, listening on a telephone, listening to music. They have to be able to adapt to that. And the questions are, what happens if there are some issues that, yeah, it might work well in quiet, but it doesn't work well in noise, or it works well in noise, but it doesn't work well for music and telephone? What happens if the sound quality is not so good? It sounds too tinny. What happens if it's too loud? What happens if it's not loud enough in different settings? How will that be addressed if you buy it over the counter? I heard some people think, oh, I'll just buy them, then I'll go to the audiologist. That way I can save money. However, the problem is, unless the audiologist somehow carries those devices, we may not have the software. And if we don't have the software, which the companies are likely will not give to us, then how are we going to be able to adjust those devices? So we may not be able to help them. Also, I went to Walmart recently, as I said, and they're selling FDA-approved hearing aids. But when I went, I tried to get information. Each hearing aid did nothing except for like 120 posts from their people who bought them. But I have no idea what those hearing aids actually do. And this is going to be a problem if you don't get information or you can't understand. So my thoughts about it is that I believe these hearing aids will be useful for people with moderate hearing loss if they live in a nursing home, in a listening facility, or those who don't go out very much. But it appears there are certain devices that may also be able to address noise-related issues. But the question is, will they be cosmetically appealing? Bose has actually got approval for a Bose hearing aid in 2018, but they're not out yet. But in the way they're describing it, sounds like it's going to look like the device like here. where you're going to wear a neck band around your neck, and you're going to have to wear these very thick earbuds to these excellent quality devices, and they work well, this device. But will people with mild to moderate hearing loss who didn't want to get hearing aids because of the way they look, are they going to wear this? So I don't know. I don't think so. There are no hearing tests required. So that way you'll get self-hearing testing or self-fitting. Will they all be incorporated into it, or are you just going to have to buy the hearing aid and hope that it meets your hearing needs? How will those fitting adjustment issues and repairs be addressed? Will there be trained staff available to meet with customers if they're being purchased online, for example? You won't. If you buy it in a store, you're going to go to Walmart and they're going to have somebody trained to serve you? I don't think so. Will there be individuals who purchase the hearing aid who actually have underlying medical issues, such as certain types of tumors, and they've not seen an audiologist at all? They don't seek treatment until very late when they're starting to have other issues. Last thing is, Bonnie asked me to talk about this. So doctoral audiology training, AD students undergo a very intensive period of earning or training. I want you to just know what is required to be an audiologist nowadays. It's 3 or 4 year programs. Not only to the courses they take, they get on-site training for the first and possibly a second year. And then they go to internships where they work for like a year with different providers in the clinics or hospitals. And usually they're in the same city as the university. And then they spend a whole year, 5 days a week, where they're being supervised by an audiologist. The focus is trying, at least through Gallaudet, is client-centered care. The audiologist seeks to ascertain the specific issues, listening needs, and client goals. And together, the client audiologists work to determine what interventions best meet the client's needs. Have the intervention successfully met the need, or do we have to alter the plan, maybe try a different hearing aid, or do we need maybe assistive technology? Because hearing aids by themselves will not necessarily address all the listening needs of that person. They might need other technology, such as waking up to an alarm because you have to take off your hearing aid, hearing a door knock when you're in a shower, and so you know to get out as soon as you need to. And at Gallaudet, what are our students taught? Professional integrity, respect, compassion, cultural awareness. These are all things that doctoral students need to learn. It's not about making money, it's about helping people. So committed to serve the best interests of the client. As Dr. Matthew Backey stated at our White Coat ceremony yesterday that celebrated our doctoral audiology student, it is all about our clients, not about you. So in summary, I hope I provided some information new to you, some possible avenues to explore going forward, and I hope you have questions I may be able to answer. I'm now done. So,
All right.
okay, yeah, so there we go.
Hang on 1 second. Let me turn my video on. You can go ahead and turn off your sharing, your screen. If people can just wait, if they have questions, we're going to go to the questions in the chat first. Please turn off your video so we can stay focused on the speaker. All right.
I'll tell you, I wish I could make my thing get bigger now. I have part of the screen.
Oh, if you turn off your shared screen, we would be able to do that. So
okay, stop.
There we go.
Bruce. There we go.
All right. We're going to take just a minute or two here for a short break so some eyes can rest about reading captions or watching the interpreter. We're going to have Debbie Jones come on and read the few questions that we can cover in the time remaining. So give us a minute here and we'll come and answer some of the questions in the chat. We're not going to have time to share screens and chat with our speaker today. So just 1 second. Debbie, would you like to come on screen and prepare to read the questions, and I will go off. All right.
and we're just going to take a 2-minute break, give the interpreter time to get some hands down, and we'll be right back. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're going to go ahead and come back, and we'll go ahead and start working on some of the questions that we have here in the chat. Christine was asking about the Gallaudet Communication Needs Assessment. Is that available to the public, or is that only for audiologists, Larry?
Okay. The Gallaudet Communication Needs Assessment can be shared. It's just, like a PowerPoint or that I can share, but it's just a tool. So I could share that easily if somebody wanted. Email me, I put on the first slide. And I don't know, hopefully, Bruce, if everybody who came today, perhaps in the email, we can send a PDF and they can have this presentation, so they can have my email address as well. And again, it's a tool so people can look and they can put the information in what the audiologist does and why the audiologist is important. And you need someone who is aware of all the different technologies, is to know, okay, now that I know where you have listening difficulties, the next thing I want to know, what are the priorities? What are the 3 or 4 areas that are most important that you want help in? Then I turn my attention, okay, now that I know what the issues are, with my knowledge of your hearing loss, your lifestyle, what your prioritized needs, and a knowledge of what's available or where to look or who to contact, I can then think of the technologies that will best match with who you are. For example, if you have a severe hearing loss and let's say you're visually impaired, I need to get technology recognizing that aspect.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you have different physical capabilities or you have arthritis or something, for example, or visual impairment, let's say I want to get to a certain type of telephone, I'm going to know I need large buttons. And let's say you're the early onset dementia, then I'm going to get where I have memory button with pictures on it. So by having the knowledge of what's available and matching it up to the person's needs, I can then come up with the best solutions that are cost effective that will make the individual get the access that they need.
Okay. Is there, if somebody wanted to get access to that tool, is there a link that they can follow, or should they get in touch with you to find out how to get that needs assessment tool?
Well, it's in the presentation. That's what I put there is actually the tool. It has the different, client factors. It shows you the different settings. It's all there. All you would have to do is print it out and then put in, okay, when I'm in this setting, okay, I have trouble talking at the dinner table, at home, or I have trouble hearing on the phone at work. You can put those things in, and then you can take that tool and maybe bring it to the audiologist that you go to and say, I got this tool. I've identified these are my issues. Here, I would like help in these areas. Can you help me?
Great. Thank you so much. Russell was asking, his impression is that directional mics are of limited value in that it diminishes noise, but not enough to be of any real value. Is there any work going on to improve that with directional mics?
Okay. Thank you, Russell, for asking that. And it's like, as I was talking, I wanted to say certain things, and it looks like I may not have, but as you already know, I went longer than I was hoping to. So first, even the highest quality directional mics can improve what's called the speech to noise ratio by about 4 to 5 decibels. That's the maximum improvement you could get. So it does help. On the other hand, for those who wear what are called domes, oh, by the way, so the 4 to 5 is if you wear like ear molds. If you wear domes, it may only get 2 to 3 decibels. So there's a limited amount, but 3 decibels of improvement in speech still helps quite a bit. but it's nowhere at all close to what you can get with remote mic, which can give you up to 15 to 25 dB of improvement. So that's the first thing. The problem with directional mics is only, now if you use like the auto zoom feature of, of a Roger Penn, you can actually enhance the signal to noise ratio, but we don't have the microphone capability like that in the hearing aid. You have this very, very tiny mic, and they're only limited to a certain amount you can do. Another problem, which is that the type of noise that the most difficult to address are other people talking. It's not like if the noise was purely such that it was like dishwasher or the car noise, then like the Bose type of noise cancellation system would work very well with noise Bose cancellation. And I need to read more about it. I'm sure it can handle party noise, but let's say you only have one or two people talking, that's an issue. So there's a limit to what we can do with directional technology. And even if we could, determine a speech signal, the problem is the brain doesn't know, okay, if you have three people talking, the brain doesn't know which talker is the one you want to listen to. You're not from a hearing aid. In order to listen to a talker and ignore other people talking, let's say you have normal hearing, when you're in a party, you have many people talking, and when you have two good ears, it can actually separate all the different sounds, and your brain makes a decision as to what you want to attend to and attenuate. So hearing aids don't have that ability, and that's one of the reasons why you can only do so much. So when you have a remote mic or a microphone that can zoom in, it's acting then as the human brain and picking on who you want, and that's how you can really help. So there's only there's a certain limit that we can do with hearing aids alone.
Okay, great, thank you. April is asking, do you recommend an FM system for group interactions where folks are willing to take turns when they're talking?
In the past, that's what I would recommend. However, with the FM system, you either had like one microphone or you had to daisy chain it. And as long as they're willing to pass it around, but I can tell you that if you're in a meeting with many hearing people, even when they're willing to pass around, they forget. And they'll start talking, and then you have to remind them. To have systems such as the Roger table mic, or there are other systems I didn't get into that are much more expensive, where you have certain types of technology where it can deter like ceiling mic or gooseneck mics, and it can determine from which mic the speech is coming from. Though they're expensive, but if you have Roger table mics and you play for 4 or 5, and you allow the technology to figure out what the main talker at that point in time, you don't have to worry about passing around. It's automatically doing for you. So again, if you're in an HLA meeting, yes, FM system can still be done because most people will remember. But if you go into a meeting where like 2 or 3 hard of hearing people and 15 hearing people, they are going to forget. So, but a Roger table mic system, which isn't that expensive, that's going to meet the needs of the hard of hearing person the best in my mind.
Great. David was asking, what do you mean by artificial intelligence software?
Yeah, and the old definition of artificial intelligence to me used to mean learning from the situation and then making changes so that when it comes to that situation again, it doesn't have to keep on learning it. So it does all these calculations, learns from it, basically artificial intelligence in some ways was to simulate the human brain. We come in a situation, we get exposed, we learn, and then when we come to that situation again, we have that in our storage, and so we don't have to learn again. We recognize what it is, and we can move forward. I've learned artificial intelligence can mean other things as well, which is it has an end goal that in the software, it analyzes in the environment all the, and then like number crunching or data analysis to determine which possible scenario from all the information that it coming to it, it picks a scenario that best will handle it. So that's another way of artificial intelligence, but I'm hoping that one day it's not only, and I've read that many types of artificial intelligence usages, okay, they not only adapt and do it then, but then they store that. So when the same situation comes again, it doesn't have to do all this analysis. It's already done it, recognize that setting, has it in storage, and then implements it. So that's artificial intelligence. It's being able to analyze, learn from it, and then implement.
Great. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's
yeah.
all we have time for
Oh,
today. I know that there are more questions that we didn't get to. We do have Dr. Medwetsky's contact information that we can share with the folks who attended today, so that we can, we can share that so that you can ask more questions. Thank you all for joining us today. Larry, thank you so much. This was a lot of information, and I know it'll take us some time to process it. But thank you for joining us. This was great. Bruce?